Hello, Revolution Pro Wrestling fans, and welcome to another video rundown of our upcoming event. It's live from the 229 in London. It's been a month since we last had a show, and we're rearing to get going. Andy, how are you doing?
Refreshed. It feels like a lifetime ago. It's probably the longest we've been since a pandemic without having a show, but it's been good because it's given us time to plan and prepare for the year ahead. Sometimes we don't stop and breathe. So I feel like I'm excited, even though we've already had a show in 2023. I'm kind of excited and motivated, pumped up for the year ahead, and we've got so many exciting things on the horizon.
We certainly do. And talking about so many, it's an 8-match card. Talk about value for money from Revolution Pro Wrestling.
It's almost like free wrestling, isn't it? Too much, too much. But it's all killer and no filler. So there you go.
It really, really is. Well, let's just jump in. I'm going to pick a match at random because whichever one I pick, it's going to be fantastic. So why don't we start with a match we saw the challenge was laid down at the last show. It's Gabriel Kidd, and he called out Yota Tsuji from the Legion.
Well, he didn't call out Yota Tsuji, did he? Gideon Gray called back the Yota Tsuji. Called back Yota Tsuji, yeah. So Gabe Kidd got involved in Gideon Gray's business. I mean, it's quite layered, really, when you think about it, because Gabe Kidd saved Zach Knight from getting hit by that cane of Gideon Gray. And later on, we saw Zach Knight take exception to the fact, saying he didn't need the help from anybody, let alone Gabe Kidd, even though Gabe Kidd probably saved him from a pasting. So he got that for his troubles. And also, Gideon, after taking David Francisco hostage, said to Gabe Kidd, "You want to fight me? You want to fight the Legion? Well, you can fight Yota Tsuji." So Yota Tsuji, of course, is making his return to the UK after spending 2-3 months in Mexico, competing for CMLL. So that's interesting in the least in the sense of it's going to add some new weapons to his arsenal, so to speak, and some of the things he's learned over in Mexico. We may well see some of that come to play, but also the fact that Gabriel Kidd and Yota Tsuji both passed through the New Japan Pro Wrestling dojos. They were young lions together during the start of the pandemic, so they've had a lot of time together. But of course, Gabriel Kidd coming through the LA dojo, and Yota Tsuji coming from a traditional Japanese New Japan dojo. So there's already an element of competition between the pair there. Gabe Kidd, for him, the objective is simple: beat everyone put in his path, and that will lead him towards a shot at the undisputed British Heavyweight Championship. He's made his statement, he's made his goals clear for the year 2023.
Yeah, Gabe Kidd certainly has his eyes set on gold in Revolution Pro Wrestling. That's definitely going to be a hard-hitting encounter. And speaking of hard-hitting, another hard-hitting match we have on the card. It's a returning Chris Bronson versus Dan Moloney.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan Moloney is still really, he's got a lot to prove. Dan Moloney is that he talks a talk and he has walked the walk on a number of occasions, but some may say when he gets to that finish line, so to speak, when the finish line's in sight, he falters. We look back and we see matches, for example, against Shota Umino for the #1 contendership to the championship. We think back to the Iron Fist match against Ricky Knight Jr., a man who he had already beaten earlier on in that tournament, the finals of that Southside Heavyweight Championship tournament. He lost that one as well. And again, so really for Dan, this year is about, for him, proving that he can get the job done when the pressure is at its highest. And really for Chris Bronson, it's a case of continuing to try and prove himself, to prove he belongs. And early indications say he absolutely does. Great showings for himself against Gabe Kidd and Luke Jacobs. He's going to be looking for another one this Sunday against Dan Moloney. And really, Bronson walks into this match with nothing to lose and everything to gain, and that puts a lot of pressure on the shoulders of the driller. So both men, huge plans for 2023. Stylistically, it's an intriguing contest, as you alluded to. It's going to be hard hitting. No one hits heavier than Dan Moloney, and will Chris Bronson be up to the measure?
Certainly, I really can't wait to see that match. We've gone through 2 singles matches. Let's jump into some tag team action. A team we haven't seen for quite some time. The Arrows of Hungary are back, and they'll be taking on Sunshine Machine.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Dover and Icarus. A great tag team. They complement each other perfectly. A great mix of power and agility. And yeah, they fared very well in the Great British Tag League. And they are going to want a shot at the undisputed British Tag Team Championship sooner rather than later. And if they're going to get there, they're going to have to get past Sunshine Machine, the former British Tag Team Champions. Really, 2021, the end of through to the end of 2022 was the year of Sunshine Machine. They tailed off a little bit after that anniversary show, but we saw at the start of the year, they seem to be a changed team, changed mindset after that gripping and brutal street fight with the Greedy Souls at York Hall this past December. And really, Sunshine Machine now, they've said, look, we know our rivalry with Greedy Souls is done. We lost that big one. It was almost you know, the end of the line in terms of a pursuit, whilst Greedy Souls are the tag team champions. But Sunshine Machine have now set their goals on another target, the 2023 Great British Tag League, and wanting to be the tag team of the year, wanting to continue to make history, add another accolade to their long list of accolades, and then hopefully find their way back towards those tag team championships. And they're not going to want Arrows of Hungary to come in and make a name off their backs. This Sunday, we're really going to see if the Arrows of Hungary are real contenders when it comes to those tag team championships. And Sunshine Machine, I think we're really going to have another opportunity to see how they are taking things differently going into 2023. It was interesting because it was during lockdown where they were able to make their first adjustments as a team. First of all, losing that self-fulfilling prophecy of escaping the mid card, or being stuck there, so to speak, and becoming Sunshine Machine, assessing everything about their game plan, starting to take things more seriously, and it yielded results. And I think that they were successful for so long that perhaps they took their eye off the ball. That street fight, that rivalry of the Greedy Souls has woken them up. So, they've taken a lesson in defeat, and they're coming back swinging, they're coming back hungry. And I think this is going to be, they're coming back hungry, they're coming back the Arrows of Hungary. But they're ready to go. They absolutely want to show what they're all about. And this could be a big year for Sunshine Machine. It could be a big year for everyone. That's a great thing about, it's never too early to start again. It's never too early to start a quest, so to speak. But the turn of the year, it seems to be a symbolic time to get things done. And that's what a lot of the roster in RevPro seem to be looking at.
Yeah, well, a team that's always been all business, and they've proven it time and time again. The Greedy Souls are also in action on Sunday, and they'll be taking on JJ Gale and Callum Newman. We've seen JJ Gale a lot recently. We saw him have that fantastic singles match with Gabriel Kidd at the last 229, but we haven't seen Callum since Sheffield.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And then Sheffield, of course, he competed against the Greedy Souls with JJ again there. So it's a rematch from that show. And to me, I feel that Callum Newman and JJ Gale, in my mind, are the future of this business. And it's high praise, a lot of pressure on their shoulders. They're not fly-by-night sensations like a Leon Slater, for example, but they're two men who've had the raw ability, and they have got the reps in, and the more reps they're getting in, the better they're getting, and the more experience they're getting, and the more experience they're getting, the closer and closer they're getting to being to where they want to be, but they're not quite there yet. And we've seen them both fare very well in singles matches. We've seen them both fare very well in tag team matches. And really, I feel like, this was a combination which was put together in 2020 by Will Ospreay after he competed against both men, and said, of course, we knew at the time he'd taken Callum Newman under his wing and helped in a large part of Callum Newman's early training. But he felt what it was like to be in the ring with both of them. It's like, you know what, you guys will complement each other perfectly as a team, and you will help each other learn, because you both have strengths, which is the other person's weakness. And if you can help round out the other person, you'll become great singles wrestlers at the end, right? And I'm not sure it was ever designed to be a long-term thing. And of course, I know Callum has got other friendships, closer personal friends perhaps than JJ Gale. But when it comes to business side of things, you know, they're on the same page and they're a fantastic tandem. Where do they go from here? What do they want in their careers? I don't know. But a victory over the undisputed British Tag Team Champions, even though the titles aren't on the line, victory over the champions will be a big, big thing for Newman and Gale. So, you know, we know Greedy Souls aren't here to play. They want to make a statement. They want to wipe out essentially the tag team division, and make it them being the only team standing. And believe me, with Arrows of Hungary returning, that, you know, they're going to be wanting to be sending a message to them as well, because they're going to be they're watching up close and personal. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting match with 4 very determined young men.
Back to our singles division, we have Eddie Dennis taking on Michael Oku. Now, the scene we saw at the end of the last 229 was Will Ospreay giving something of that, you know, that rocky motivational speech to Eddie Dennis. And we didn't actually have Mike at the last 229 show because he was over in LA waving the flag of British wrestling, waving the flag of Revolution Pro Wrestling when he competed in Bola. So this is a highly anticipated matchup.
Absolutely, and I think that look, we've come to a realization now that any time we get to see Michael Oku compete, it's something which is very special, to say the least, and something that we shouldn't be taking for granted, because, you know, we've been lucky enough to have him as one of our own for the past few years, but now he belongs to the world. So he's, you know, I feel like we should be taking the most of these opportunities to see Michael Oku in action. The match itself is going to be very interesting because, look, there's a history. Eddie Dennis, one of Michael Oku's trainers, also one of Connor Mills's trainers. We know Michael Oku said he's done with Connor Mills. Fair enough. You know, what more can we say to that? You know, but, and there is a big but, Eddie Dennis has almost been caught in the crossfires, because he's not going to be friends with Connor Mills, and he's not going to be friends with Michael Oku because he's brought them both through. But he's very angry with Michael Oku right now because of the way Michael Oku kind of stepped in his moment, threw in the towel in that match with Connor Mills. And again, it's not about the beating that Connor Mills was giving his trainer, because Eddie Dennis wouldn't have asked for any less. You know, it was about the fact that Eddie Dennis wanted to go down on his own sword. He wanted to go down on his own power, not the say so of anyone else. And if anyone can comprehend that, if anyone can understand that thought process, that motivation, it's Michael Oku. We saw how he was ahead of his match with Will Ospreay. You know, he begged the referee not to call it unless he says so. And then he goes and does that against Eddie Dennis. And look, Eddie Dennis turned down the opportunity to tag with Michael Oku against the Greedy Souls in December. And again, it would have been a big opportunity for Michael Oku to do something he wanted to do with Eddie Dennis, I guess, in a similar way to the way that Michael Oku wanted to be tag team champions with Connor Mills. He wanted to be tag team champions with Eddie Dennis, but Eddie Dennis declined that invitation. As Michael Oku put it, he was looking for nostalgia, looking at the past instead of ahead to the future, is the way Michael Oku saw it. So I think Michael Oku perhaps felt a little bit slighted by that fact. But look, Eddie Dennis just didn't want to be around Michael Oku in that situation. And I feel that this opportunity is going to be a great opportunity for Dennis to get some frustrations out of his system, to try and teach Michael a lesson, and for Michael to understand where Eddie Dennis is coming from, and for us all to get back on the same page. I don't think it's going to be you know, a grudge match in any sense of a word. I think both men are going to come into this like a sporting contest, and we're going to see sportsmanship being displayed throughout. I think it's going to be a great professional wrestling match, and at the end, I think that both men are going to shake hands. And after that, I think they're going to move on. And I feel like the only variable I can see is Connor Mills. Will he be around? But Michael Oku's vowed he's not going to fight Connor Mills again. And Connor Mills has never really made his intentions perfectly clear on what he wants to do with Michael Oku now. He says he's focused on him. So, you know, it's an open book, so to speak. I'm interested to see how, you know, how this next chapter plays out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. You spoke about Eddie Dennis, of course, training Michael and Connor. Well, Connor is in action as well. He's taking on the hard-hitting former British cruiserweight champion, Luke Jacobs. Yeah,
it's going to be a hell of a war. Both men great strikers. And look, both men need this victory, don't they? And I think it's gonna look. I don't really know. I think it's one of those pick 'em matches. Again, if you were talking about form previously, you'd be looking at Luke Jacobs because he was the in-form wrestler. So we're talking about summer 2022. There wasn't a better wrestler in Revolution Pro Wrestling than Luke Jacobs. And I don't necessarily feel that Luke Jacobs has tailed off in any way, shape, or form. I feel like he got distracted in this rivalry he had with Dan Maloney. You know, I feel that he took his eye off the ball when he lost that Cruiserweight Championship. Inviting Dan Maloney into that contest was his downfall. And I feel that, you know, he lost to Robbie X. Was he thinking about Dan Maloney? Was he putting too much pressure on his shoulders where there wasn't that pressure before? And how does he rebound from that? You know, I think that Luke Jacobs responded to defeat against Robbie X very well. He shook his hand. And afterwards, in his backstage comments, he made it very clear that Robbie X is the man in the Cruiserweight division, that now it's time for Luke Jacobs to kick on. Where's he going to kick on? Cruiserweight division, heavyweight division, tag team division. The world is truly Luke Jacobs' oyster. But he has to get through past Connor Mills this Sunday. And Connor Mills is going to want to continue to make statements. He made a vicious and nasty one this past January against David Francisco. And if he is to be believed, I think that, you know, he's going to come into this contest against Luke Jacobs, all guns blazing. And we've seen this combination in tag team matches, Young Guns against Destination Everywhere, intriguing, enthralling scraps. And I don't think this singles contest between Mills and Jacobs is going to be any different.
Absolutely. It's going to be an absolute scrap, as you put it, Andy. We have 2 matches left on the card, and it's 2 championship matches. So let's jump into the Southside Women's Championship. It'll be the champion Dani Luna making, I believe, her 2nd defense against Jody Threat.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Dani Luna has got a chip on her shoulder. She wants to prove she's the absolute best. She wants to make up for lost time. She hasn't competed in a very long time before coming to Revolution Pro Wrestling. And right now, Dani Luna wants to prove she is the very top of her game. Take on any challengers. That's what she wants to do, and she's doing it by opening the door to Jody Threat, the Canadian. And she, you know, Jody Threat. I mean, she's risen to prominence because of her toughness. You saw her in AEW against Athena, and you saw how tough and durable she can be. And I think that same durability is going to fare her very well against Dani Luna, who's one of the hardest hitters in the division. Jody Threat is a woman who has been on the lips of many wrestling fans around the globe for a long time, almost an underground sensation. And I feel that this could be her coming out party to come to Revolution Pro Wrestling, win that women's championship on her first night in. It's going to make a hell of a statement, and it will make you know, international headlines around the wrestling world. But Dani Luna is going to do everything in her, you know, in her part, like everything she can to stop Jody, to stop the threat of Jody Threat. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for some kind of play on words there. But I think, you know, I think it's going to be an excellent, intriguing first time wrestling match, and that's what we're all about, you know, those first time contests, making history, and Jody Threat's going to look to make history by taking that women's championship. You know, I'm intrigued and excited, and as I'm sure is a lot of the women's division who are going to be waiting in the wings to see who's going to win this match. Of course, none more so than the likes of Alex Windsor, Kanji, you know. You know, I think it's a very interesting and exciting match and a great addition to the card.
Absolutely, and it's a match that could possibly have ramifications for that inevitable, as a Dani Luna pun, inevitable Women's Championship unification match down the line. We have one more match to go through, and it is for the undisputed British Cruiserweight Championship. It is your 2022 British J-Cup winner and current champion Robbie X taking on Kid LYKOS. Now, Kid LYKOS is someone who really thinks of himself as a leader of the cruiserweights in this country, someone who has had so many setbacks, so many injuries, but he wants to make this year his year. He's going to be on a tear, in his own words. But we've seen that Robbie X is a champion that has proved himself time and time again, and regardless of the outcome, we're in for one hell of a high-flying match.
Yeah, absolutely. Kid LYKOS is, like you say, he's someone who sees himself as a leader of this generation of British wrestlers, almost like one of these young veterans we talk about. He's been doing it for a very long time. Of course, we've seen him take Kid LYKOS 2 under his wing as a part of that mission statement. Him and LYKOS 2 opened up the year you know, I can't fault them at all in their contest against Greedy Souls. They fought valiantly with heart and determination. The one thing that let them down was their reliance on shenanigans. I think Kid Lykos is actually a lot better than Kid Lykos thinks he is, you know, because he doesn't need to rely on this stuff. I think Robbie X poses a great challenge to Lykos. Again, it would really be something for Kid Lykos to walk away with the undisputed British Cruiserweight Championship, and it would reaffirm everything that Kid Lykos believes in, that he can be the leader that he believes he is in his head. He can show the world he is that leader, you know. But Robbie X is perhaps the most complete cruiserweight there's ever been. You know, he's been doing this for such a long time, since he was a little boy. You know, the first time I met Robbie X, he was probably 7, 8 years old, like, true story. And he had started his training, and he got gorilla press slammed to the outside onto someone. It didn't go quite according to plan. He burst into tears.
What was the plan, gorilla pressing a 7-year-old? What do you mean it didn't go?
I don't know. It was absolutely irresponsible and ridiculous. And it wasn't something which was okayed by the promoters beforehand. But you know, some people went into business for themselves on that day. He may have been 9. I don't know.
Oh, that makes it better. That makes it better.
But point being, and this is going back to, my God, like, we're looking maybe 2006. I don't know, 2006, 2007, something like that. But the point I'm making is Robbie X has been around this business his entire life, and he has reached the stage where he's matured as a performer. And I think in his heart, he's believed he's been there for the past 2 years. But he was only confident enough to say it out loud last year. And when he started saying it out loud, everyone started believing, and that made him believe even more. And he's now at the stage where he's comfortable calling himself the king of the cruiserweights and backing it up. And right now, I think that people believe this is Robbie X's breakout year. And this contest against Kid Lykos is a real test for him and a real opportunity for him to show why he is what he says he is. He never had to put the championship on the line here tonight on Sunday, but he decided to put the championship on the line because he's got that goal of Michael Oku's 15 defenses in his sights, and he wants to surpass that because he wants to go down in the history books as well. So, you know, like I say, it's going to be a great contest. Hopefully, Kid Lykos, like you say, he wants to turn over a new leaf, and he wants to show people what he's all about in 2023. And hopefully, he doesn't rely on any shenanigans, because if he doesn't, you know, this contest could be great. And I'd love, if Kid Lykos were to win the Cruiserweight Championship, I'd love for him to do it on his own merits, so there's no questions. The same way there was no questions, you know, Robbie X, when he won that Cruiserweight Championship, you can add the questions, you can add Dan Maloney, the asterisks, because of Dan Maloney effectively eliminating Luke Jacobs from the contest after being eliminated himself. You can add that asterisk. He actually pinned Will Caven to win that championship, a man who'd beaten him twice before. But how do you shut up those critics? You beat Will Caven 2 out of 3 falls, 2 falls straight, then you go on to defeat Luke Jacobs, the man who was the original Cruiserweight champion in the match where he won the championship off and didn't pin him for it. You get where I'm going. This is defense number 3 for Robbie X. It's a long way to number 15, but if anyone can do it, Robbie X can, and he wants to be active. And, you know, when you're active, you're just getting better and better and better. You know, some people actually prefer to have a layoff between their matches, but someone like Robbie X, he needs to keep going, because, you know, I think we saw when he came back from injury, you know, it took him a little while to start picking up those wins after coming back from that ankle injury at the top of last year. And it was towards the end of the year that he really started to build that momentum, feed off those momentum, and turn that momentum into victories, and then ultimately a Cruiserweight Championship.
And that is our stacked card for this Sunday. All killer, no filler, live from the 229. We still have a few tickets available, and the new home for all Revolution Pro Wrestling tickets is revolutionprowrestling.com, and we now live stream our shows at our new on-demand site, our new over-the-top on-demand site, RevProOnDemand.com. Andy, thank you so much for joining me for this rundown. It's always a pleasure doing these videos.
No worries. And I hope everyone watching can make it out to the show this Sunday. And if not, as you said, Gio, RevProOnDemand.com. It's the only way we can keep going is with your support. You know, we're a very small company, and your support is what we need to keep this thing going, and keep making history. And you know, all you've got to do is look at RevProOnDemand.com and look back at our archive, and you'll see some of the great memories that we've created. We've been adding a lot of shows over the last week or so, from our history, and when you look back at those, it's just crazy to think of some of the matches that we've had. So you can check it all out now on RevProOnDemand.com. But I'm telling you right now, at the time, we didn't appreciate how good we had it, and I think that right now we're living through another one of those times where we're going to look back and we're going to realize how good we had it. So much great wrestling still to come. And you can be a part of it all, revolutionprowrestling.com and RevProOnDemand.com. Had to go for the hard sell at the end, but I've appreciated you, Gio. Thanks very much.
All right, I'll see you on Sunday, Andy, and I will see all of you as well.